Mr. Spielberg, the first 30 minutes of your film, Saving Private Ryan, are realistic, are horrendous and cruel. You make us tremble in our seats. What were you trying to tell us?
Well, telling you that war is hell is, we all know that. We all know the words. We all know what those words mean, but we don't feel those words unless we experience the hell that those young boys 54 years ago experienced firsthand. So what I was simply trying to do was to put you into a war on Omaha Beach, to make you not only experience it, but to appreciate their sacrifice and to almost honor their sacrifice, so we could, say to them, wow, how did you do it? And thank you for doing it.
How did you turn actors into soldiers? It happened only because they are very good actors?
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes a very good actor to pretend that he's a very good soldier, but also I put my actors through a kind of boot camp, a kind of basic training that I felt was important to give the actors respect for the soldiers they were about to portray. And so Dale Dye, our technical consultant and a veteran of Vietnam, took Tom Hanks and Tom Sizemore and Eddie Burns and Matt Damon and Giovanni Ribisi, Adam Goldberg, Vin Diesel, not Matt Damon actually, he didn't have to go, but took them into a program of 6 days of very, very hard, backbreaking work to try to give them some feeling of what it was like to serve in the Army.
Matt Damon said, by the way, that working with you is a show in itself.
A show in, yeah, well, I work very fast, and Matt was very amused by how fast I work. I pretty much make instant decisions of where to put the camera. I pretty much know always somehow, intuitively, where the camera needs to be in order to, cut the sequence together, to create all the parts that I'd later assemble in the editing room.
And how many people did you need for the battle scenes?
Well, not counting the soldiers themselves and not counting the people you saw on film, the support people behind the camera, the sound crew, the camera crew, the special effects, physical special effects crew, costumes, makeup. I would say people who constructed the sets, I'd say the people in the background was about 150 people.
Would you have been able to do this film 20 years ago?
Well,
were you prepared?
No, personally, no. I wouldn't have had the knowledge or the experience to make a picture this detailed and this authentic 20 years ago, personally speaking. Also, the world wasn't ready for a picture like this, I don't think 20 years ago. I think the world had to, get to a point where they, as they do today, kind of demand from us, as well as from their leaders, the truth about things. And I wanted to tell people the truth about that particular war. It was very important to me to do that.
You were never enrolled into going to any war yourself?
Yes.
You never?
Never.
You're happy?
Very happy. Thank God.
Mr. Spielberg, Kurosawa said that there was an aesthetic side to war and that it made it dangerous.
Well, war, the aesthetic side of war is basically happens when people, romance the war. They make the war to be a vision that is unlike what the reality of war actually is, but they kind of interpret war and they interpret it through a kind of romantic, heroic vision, which was something I tried very hard not to do, which I think is what separates Saving Private Ryan from many other war films made in the past, even though some of those war films share similar moments. By and large, I feel that Ryan is much more like a document of a war as opposed to a exaggeration or a romanticization of one.
You just called Kurosawa the Shakespeare of film. Why?
Well, because Shakespeare was very operatic, literally. Through literature he was operatic, and I felt that Kurosawa, like Shakespeare, also made great visual operas. All of his stories were, just masterpieces. And very few films were not masterpieces that Kurosawa's touched. And I just felt that he was, like David Lean, he was about visual literature. Not so much the spoken word, but the images spoke volumes about the story he was trying to tell us.
Mr. Spielberg, is there decency in war?
I don't know if there is decency. War certainly isn't a place to easily find decency. But my philosophy is that everybody who is in a war, in order to save their immortal souls, they need to search for decency. They need to find something decent to take out of that experience so they can live the rest of their lives out from under the cloud of, combat, loss, death, destruction, nightmares, and unbearable memories. They need to rescue themselves from war, and to do that, I think they have to search for decency.
What was decency in Saving Private Ryan?
Well, I think the whole nature of the theme is a decent theme, which is this mission to search for a young man who lost all of his brothers in that war, to return him to his mother. The whole mission is sort of an errand of mercy, and it's fraught with high ideals, and it's the decent thing to do. But decency, if you simply go after that for its own sake, unfortunately leads to a lot of bitter moments.
What's more important in war? Honor, efficiency, comradeship, the thrill of violence, death, victory?
Survival, more than anything else. When kids are fighting wars, they don't remember the politics of what started the war. They don't remember that they're fighting to free, nations that have been occupied, as was the case in World War II. They simply, in the middle of battle, with the chaos, the noise, the intensity of it all, they simply think of surviving, saving their own lives, and getting home, and often saving the lives of just those around them. So war really is just about survival.
How do you see wars in the future?
Well, you had a glimpse. We all had a glimpse of a future war with the Gulf War. We watched on television as cameras, in the actual missiles themselves. I mean, if you've ever thought of a more preposterous image, science fiction writers couldn't have dreamed about 50 years ago putting cameras on missiles. So we saw the target getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer until the whole screen just went white. I mean, we've already seen the future.
Yes. And how do you see movies in the future?
I hope
50 years from now.
Oh, listen, I hope movies technologically are the same as we have today 50 years from now. I hope we're still projecting movies against a flat surface. And I hope there's still a machine called a projector, and there's still a light coming out of that projector. There are still images on the screen, I hope. I'm afraid, that someday movies will be just big television screens, which would really break my heart, because I'm an old-fashioned person about the photochemical process of film and developing and that kind of thing. And I think movies are going to have to get less expensive, or movies are going to become as extinct as dinosaurs before 50 years. Because we can't keep making movies that cost $200 million, because that means the next one will cost $300 million, which means someday, 20 years from now, a movie could cost $500 million for one single film. And I think it would be the end of the film industry if films continue to escalate in their costs. So I think we have to all find ways together of bringing the cost down and making the stories better.
Why do you love movies so much?
Well, it's why do I like air so much? I want to live, and movies give me life.
Is it true that your father took you one night to see a meteor shower in Arizona?
No, it wasn't Arizona, it was New Jersey, but he took me to a meteor shower, and I was very young, and it was the first time he opened my mind up to the possibility of life off Earth.
Do you have faith in the unknown?
Oh yeah, I am sort of, I'm always afraid of the unknown, but I embrace it. Most of my stories that come from my imagination come from the unknown, and so it's a great source of stories and ideas, and I respect it, but I also fear it, because everybody fears the unknown.
Are you like Hitchcock? Do you know what people fear?
Well, I don't know what people fear. I know what I fear, and I've often made movies based on what I'm afraid of, and I kind of just try to, you know, take it out of my heart and put it in yours. You know, it's kind of a mean, evil thing for me to do to you, but with Jaws, for instance, I've always been afraid of the ocean, and certainly everything that I can't see that lives beneath the surface. And I simply took that fear that I've had all my life and put it on film, and then it became a picture that scared a lot of people. And because I spent so much time dealing with the water and dealing with sharks, I became less afraid. So it was great medicine for me, perhaps not such good medicine for other people.
Always being impressed by the fact that you bring mystery out of light instead of the shadows, like in the light in the spaceship of Close Encounters. Why do you give us this mystery out of light?
Well, because I feel that I'm kind of optimistic as a person. I really am more positive than negative, and I feel light is a positive source of optimism and energy, and dark is sort of a negative source. And so I've often used light to make people hope, as opposed to just blackness that often makes people despair. And because I love light that way.
I have the impression that you have seen every film that has ever been made, but especially you have transformed the adventure films, serials, and science fiction films, the B films from the past, into A films of the present. What moved you to do this?
Well, of course, when you're making a picture, you don't know you're going to make an A film. You know, it's easy to make a C film. It's easier to fail than to succeed. So, I never really set out to say I'm going to make a classic science fiction film. I just set out to tell a good story that happens to be surrounded by science fiction or fantasy elements. E.T. I thought was just a children's film. I was very surprised when E.T. also appealed to old people, not just little kids. It was a wonderful surprise, but it was a surprise nonetheless. Close Encounters was more of an experimental film. I was very interested in UFOs and whether life had come to Earth to visit, and whether alien life had been coexisting with us. I had read all the UFO books, especially by J. Allen Hynek, and so that film to me was my hope that we were not alone, and that was a very good experience for me.
So you were really 10 years old when you made your first film?
I was 12, and I was trying to get a merit badge for the Boy Scouts of America, and I was trying to get a photography merit badge, and the requirements said I had to tell a story with still photographs, and we did not have a still camera, believe it or not. We just had a little 8mm movie camera, and I instead tell a story with a movie camera, and I got my merit badge, but it also sort of got, wow, I can make movies. I could get a merit badge and I can tell a story. And so it was like an epiphany for me growing up when that happened. And I have not stopped since I was 12 years old making pictures.
Who were the directors you must admire?
Oh, it's a long list, such a long list, I mean, there are so many of them, and they're everywhere. I mean, they're in every country. Some of the American directors I admire: David Lean, Alfred Hitchcock, Marty Scorsese, contemporary director; Francis Ford Coppola, contemporary director; John Ford, Howard Hawks, Preston Sturges, Frank Capra. My God, it's just everybody. And I've learned so much from Truffaut and Fellini and Kurosawa, and as I said, David Lean, and just there's been great directors. And I'm a student of film. I will never stop being a student of film. I saw a wonderful film on TV last night called The Hill by Sidney Lumet, Sean Connery's first serious role after James Bond, which I thought was just, I hadn't seen that movie in 15 years. I was so inspired even last night by watching a movie, so I'll learn from that film too.
How important is history for you when you make films?
Well, the past is very important because everything about the past is what makes us. I mean, we grow, we grow through the past. I mean, every time we take a breath, the past is just behind us. And so I feel I learn from the past. I love history. I think history is very important. I emphasize to my own children that they need to study history and understand why we are who we are today and why we aren't who we should be today. I mean, all the problems we are as a society and all the progress we've made, I think we need to look back at history. And with my films, I need history. Also, if I didn't have all these teachers teaching me about how to tell great stories, I would not know how to tell a good story without all the directors that came before me, decade before decade before decade. So I think, we need to always use the past to be better people.
Who are the movie actresses you were in love with when you were a teenager?
The movie actresses I loved?
Yes.
Oh.
When you were to matinees?
Oh, so many. Well, when I was growing up, I always loved, I like Carol Baker. Remember Carol Baker, the actress?
Baby doll?
Baby doll, yeah.
Yes.
I had a big crush on her when I was a kid. I liked Sophia Loren. I liked the foreign actresses, Gina Lollobrigida. I like Claudia Cardinale. I like these Italian actresses. I was growing up.
Mediterranean style.
Mediterranean style. I like those actresses. But that was in my personal feelings. In my professional love of actresses. Katharine Hepburn, certainly, and Irene Dunne, and just great actresses. Loretta Young. I was a big fan. Betty Davis. I see so many old movies even now. I love the way everybody seemed older than they were. I mean, all these actresses, when they were in their 20s, seemed like they were in their late 30s and very mature. They were all women. They weren't girls. Today, we make movies about girls and boys. The girls and boys of 50 years ago, part of the golden age of Hollywood, those boys and girls acted like they were men and women. And there was much more of a kind of on-camera maturity in those days, almost like kids, playing grown-ups, wearing their mother and father's clothing. But they succeeded.
And who are your idols, your matinee idols?
Well, the Jimmy Stewart, James Cagney. I love Gary Cooper. Certainly Spencer Tracy is one of my favorite actors of all time. John Garfield. But that's way back. I'm sort of a old-fashioned person, so I always go way back to give you those answers.
Mr. Spielberg, do you know what people want to see in films?
No, I don't. I honestly don't know what people want to see in movies, and I've never presumed to know that. When I've made sequels to Raiders of the Lost Ark with the 2 Indiana Jones adventures, and when I made The Lost World, which was the sequel to Jurassic Park, yes, then I knew, or I presumed to know, that people certainly wanted more of that kind of story. They wanted to see more dinosaurs, they wanted to see more of Harrison Ford. But everything else I've directed, I've never really known that that's what the audience wanted until the audience later said, yes, we wanted that. We're proving it by going to your movie. And other films the audience didn't go to, where they obviously said, no, we don't want that.
Are you still the same child who saw a meteor shower in New Jersey with your father?
Sadly, I'm not, but my children are. And I've got 7 of them. And I think most of my kids are the same person I was. And now I'm the father that can take them and show them my meteor showers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spielberg.
Thank you very much.
En Londres, Silvia Lemus.